Welcome back to another episode of Out There with Johnny. Finally got a clear night. I was able to get the iOptron AZ Mount Pro with the Skywatcher ED80 and the ASIair Plus, all connected, working, so forth and so on. Ran into a few issues here and there. One of the things that I keep forgetting is I use the same tablet for all my different configurations. And depending how I have the ASIair set up with a different mount, some of the things have to change in the details. Like for instance, if I'm doing it wirelessly, what settings do I use? What's my SSID that I'm looking for? So forth and so on. So typically the way I'm going to go forward from now on is the special setup is going to be reserved for when I'm using the AZ GTI with the ED50 guide. And then everything else will just be ASIair through a hard cable to the mounts, and then I will just plate solve with the ASIair. I am finding that regardless of what my setup is, plate solving with the ASIair just simplifies everything. Even as good as the AZ Mount Pro is of calibrating itself and aligning to objects, the plate solving is just so much easier. It streamlines things for me. And so when the video you're about to see is a little jumpy here and there because I was running into some issues and it took some time to figure it out because I was forgetting things. And so, but the meat of it is that I wanted to show you the AZ Mount Pro in action. I wanted to show you with the Skywatcher ED80, the EvoStar ED80, and I wanted you to see how the ASIair did the live stack, showed you how it saves a separate each image that it takes, and some setups and things that we talked about in the previous video, but I wanted to show it to you in action. And then what I'm going to do is a follow-up video after this series. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you take those same images that the ASIair Plus saved from the live stacks and how you load them in and stack manually, so forth and so on. And I'll show you both ways. That'll be the Deep Sky Stacker, which is pretty popular, and Affinity Photo, which I use a lot. And I also use Affinity Photo to do my to do my own stacking or do its own stacking, so forth and so on. But that'll be a follow-up video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into that night that I was using the AZ Mount Pro with the ASIair Plus, the Skywatcher EvoStar 80ED. Well, we finally have a clear night. It's cold. It's in the 30s for Texas, central Texas. It's cold. All you guys up north are probably laughing at me, but that's okay. You don't have the summers we have in the hundreds. But anyway, I digress. Finally tonight, I get to put out the iOptron AZ Mount Pro that was in the last video on my setups, and I'm going to walk you through that a little bit tonight. So I've got it set up. I've got it leveled without the scope on it. We found. So let's see here. So here's the bubble level. Let's see if you guys can see that. There we go. Got it leveled. And before I put anything on it, one of the things I want to show you that's important about this is on the mount itself, on the saddle, you see this arrow here? Make sure before you put the scope on, that's pointing up. Because if it's pointing down and you mount your scope, when it's done doing its automatic calibration, your scope's going to be pointing straight down, and it's not going to know where it's at. So always make sure that arrow is pointing up before you mount your scope. So I'm going to stop this and go grab the scope and then get it mounted, and then I'll walk you through how it's all hooked up. See you in a few. Okay, we're back, and I'm going to show you how I have this thing set up. So I have the scope balanced. It's not on the clutch, so you can move it freely around. I'm going to go ahead and lock that clutch in while I walk around it. So where the guide scope typically goes, in the shoe I have the ASIair Plus. And I like it set up like this, especially when Alta has this antenna sticking up. You get the most range out of it. There's nothing blocking it. The other thing is you have to realize that on this mount, don't mount anything up here on top. That square plate, that's where the GPS looks through, a little plastic plate there. You don't want to put things on top of that. Then of course I have the hand controller plugged into the mount itself. Mount has its own internal battery. I have not run this in this cold of weather, so I don't know what the battery's going to do. I know I've had experience with lithium batteries in the past, and they get cold, they just don't want to work. Now, as far as the train goes, so I have a 2.0 to 1.25 adapter going to a flip mirror here. I have a 25 millimeter eyepiece that's parfocal with the actual camera, which is back here. Now, when I finish hooking this up, what's going to happen is, when I turn this on, I'm going to swing my telescope so it's pointing up, and then it's going to do a self-calibration. But I'm going to go ahead and finish hooking up the cables, and then I'll be back again in just a few moments. Okay, so we're back, and what I'm going to show you now is this is the battery, the lithium battery, that powers just the ASIair Plus. The mount has its own internal battery. Now, because this mount has done such an excellent job in the past for doing a self-calibration and aligning to the stars in the sky, what I do is I let it do the alignments, I let it do the point twos, so that way when I use my tablet to take photos with the ASIair, I can also flip over to the Sky Safari Pro app, point to where I want the scope to go, touch that, and it drives the scope over to it. This thing automatically links to Sky Safari Pro, which is excellent. So I don't use the ASIair to plate solve or drive this particular mount because it does such a good job on its own. I haven't had the need to do that yet. With my equatorial mount, yes, I do. But with this mount, you completely and totally skip the necessities of polar alignment. And if I'm not filming and explaining things, quite honestly, it's so fast I would have already been looking at my first object. It's that quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this thing on. I'm going to let it do its calibration. I'm going to let you watch it do its calibration. Then it's going to find the brightest object in the sky. It's going to point to that, and then it's going to tell me to center my eyepiece, which I will do with the eyepiece here with the flip mirror. And then what I'll do is I'll flip it up and see where it is on the sensor on the tablet, and then I'll adjust it to the sensor on the final steps. So we'll go ahead and get started. Pick this off. Get this off. Put this away. Okay. All right, let's turn it on. It's going to come up here. It's going to ask me if I want to do an auto cal, and I will as soon as I get there. Let me hit enter, and here it goes. Now notice my camera on the tripod legs. One of the things you got to watch out for if you're using a long scope, make sure that camera doesn't hit those tripod legs. So it's going to do a complete 360. It takes just a few minutes. Because the battery is just opposite, hanging on the counterweight bar, I'm not worried if the cable's coming entangled or ensnared or anything. Same thing with the camera, the cable stays onto the scope itself. So there's nothing coming off this mount to a separate table, to a separate computer. So, and I have a battery, I have a power supply going to ASIair, and I have a cable going from the ASIair to the camera. Of course, the cable that connects the hand set the hand computer to the mount, and that's it. There it goes. Okay, it says Sirius is the brightest star in the sky, and it is. That's it right there, right beside that street lamp. So now it's going to ask me to take a look in the eyepiece. So basically what it's going to happen is I'm going to look at this eyepiece, see if Sirius is there. And I think, if I can get it in here right, there it is. Now it's not in focus, I've got to refocus. So I'm going to stop this for a minute, get this thing focused, get this thing figured out, and then we'll jump back into this. So see you again in just a little bit. Okay, now I have all the rest of the cables hooked up. This cable here actually goes down to a serial connection. So I go from serial to the RJ4 right here. It allows me to connect into the, just a focus, RS-232 connection on the mount. Let's get this to come on focus now. There we go. Does not plug into the hand controller on this mount. It actually connects to the mount itself at the RS-232, which is a bit different from most others because the RS-232 is actually the secondary connection on the bottom of the hand controller. So I've got everything connected. You saw it do its complete evolution and alignment. What I've got it done right now, it thinks Sirius is the brightest star. So I've aligned it onto the tablet. What I did first was I put the star in the eyepiece that you see here. And then I flipped the mirror. So I flipped the mirror up so it goes to the camera itself. And then I use the controls to put the star in the center of my display here, which then I enter alignment, and then it comes back and says alignment good. And then from this point on, I am going to use plate solving with this program, and I'm going to show that to you going forward. So I got to realign my table here, get all this put together. You should be able to see the whole screen, and I think you can. Okay. And then what we do from this point on is, now that it's synced to the actual mount through the ASIair, what I'm going to go do now is I'm going to go to my go-to. I'm going to go up here, I'm going to put in M42, and I'm going to hit, look for it. It's going to come up as Orion Nebula. I highlight that, the go-to symbol comes up down here. I'm going to hit that, and then it's going to start moving. It's going to slew it to where it thinks it is. It's going to take a picture. It's going to verify it's there or not. Validating center, solving, detected 357 stars. It's going to auto sync one more time. And then it's going to validate it. It's going to say it's centered, and boom, there it is. 1 second shot with this camera on this Evo 80 ED from Skywatcher. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from preview, I'm going to go to live. Now, live, I'm going to go in and set it up. So I'm going to do lights, bends, pick my bend, how long do I want it to go for, no limit for stack, I'm not going to terminate it at a certain point, and then darks. Now, what I want to do before I do this is I want to go back to live, a preview. I'm going to go do 5 seconds and see what it looks like. You see the whole screen there? I'm going to do 5 seconds and see what it looks like. It's a pretty bright nebula, so you don't necessarily need a lot of time on it. So it came in a whole lot nicer. Now let's go to 10 seconds and see what it does. Adjust this camera here. Here we go, a little bit better there. Now if we jump all the way up to 30 seconds, let's see what we get for a single shot. While we're waiting, the other thing is, see my telescope symbol up here? See how it's white? That's because I connected it to the ASIair Plus. Let's see what this looks like. If you remember the last video where I went through all the steps on how to connect everything, that's how we got here. Now 30 seconds looks pretty good. A little blown out in the middle. A little blown out in the middle, not too terribly bad. So if you remember you select AZ Mount Pro 8407, turn it on, sync your mount, and then start doing your plate solving and your controls. The other piece, if you remember, it defaults to eMMC. You want to pick that and save it to your SD card, if you have an SD card. And then you can save everything in here. Now, I got a lot of stuff in here already, so what I'm going to do, because I've already taken everything off here and worked with it, I'm going to delete all that. I'm going to go back to live. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to delete all this because it's already off the card. There. Now I'm going to go back to measurement. I have 0, nothing. So now the question becomes, do I want to take darks or not? The thing you have to be careful with Alt-Az, if you take dark frames, it will subtract the noise, but because it's doing a circular motion as it tracks, you'll see actual black lines come up. So what I tend to do a lot of times is not worry about darks in Alt-Az, and then I'll just go in and post-process and clean it up. You can go either way. Tonight I'm not going to worry with darks. I'm going to go ahead and jump into this live stack so you can see what it does. So we're going to go to live. We're going to go here. We're going to pick 30 seconds. We're going to hit OK. Bin 1, it's a light. No flats, no darks, nothing checked. You hit OK. And no limits. Then I'm going to hit Go. Now you're going to watch down here. So my gains is 186 for the camera. My temperature is 46.9. My cooler is off because I don't have power to it. I've stacked nothing so far, and I have ignored nothing so far. So we're going to wait for this first 30 seconds, and then it will start stacking. So you see what it looks like now. There we go. You see what it looks like now. I'm not going to sit here and let you guys go through the stacking process because it takes a little while. What I'm going to do is let it stack a few times, and then we'll take a look at it again. So hang tight, I'll be back. Okay, we're back, and right now we have 5 stacks. As you can see right here, ignored 0. You can actually see the running man starting to come in over here. Now the video is not going to pick this up as clear as what I'm kind of seeing on the screen, but you definitely get the idea. And I'm just going to let it continue to stack more and more and more. I have some vignetting, as you can see around the edges here. I do have a 1.5 nose piece on the camera because I have it adapted to that mirror. I think if I take it out of that mirror and use the full frame of the camera, and the optics of the optical line of the telescope, I'll probably lose that vignetting. But the idea here is to focus on what's in the center here. But you can see this live stacking works really good. Now, as it's stacked, let me show you something. Let's go over here to the SD card. Let's go to image management. You see my live now has 7 lights, M42, because that's where I designated to go, and it saves every individual frame it takes. That way you can do your own post-processing with each fit frame that you want to do yourself. And I experiment a lot with these. I put them in my, I use Affinity Photo, because Affinity Photo is set up so well for astrophotography, for stacking, processing, everything. I take all these individual frames and I'll do a manual, and then the manual I'll compare to the live. Now, if I choose this button down here on the lower right hand corner, that's going to manually save it, but that's going to save it to my photo file on the device itself. So if I hit this, it says saves is succeeded. Let's jump out of this for a minute. Let's go to my photo album, my gallery, and there it is. There's a single frame it saved. Now, because I had everything else showing up, it only takes that photo. You don't see all the stuff you see around the side. So that's a good thing to know. Now let's go back, let's jump back into the program. And we're up to 9 stacks now. I'm going to let it continue going, and then I'll get back with you in just a bit. Well, it looks like my lens may be fogging up a bit. That's why it's getting a lot worse with that kind of a foggy look to it. If I zoom in here, you can see it is doing a nice job pulling it out of the sky, but I think my lens is starting to fog up a bit. Or do, I should say. But you can see now, let me take this out, we're up to 14 stacks. And again, if I go and look at my image management and I go to my live, it already tells me I've got 15 stacks in there. And there they all are. And I can go post-process a lot of that mess that's out that you're seeing. Now, it does a pretty good job of keeping the alignment. When you go do a manual post-process and you stack it like in astrophoto, you will see on the edges where each frame twists a little bit as it spins with the Alt-Az, and then you just have to do a crop. But this is not doing too terribly bad, despite the fact. But I think I do have some dew maybe building up in my lens. So we're going to stop it here shortly. We're at 15 stacks. That's pretty good. The camera keeps defaulting to a too bright of a setting. We'll give it one more. Okay. 17, so we'll stop that. We hit stop, and then it'll stay where it's at until I tell it to go do something else. So let's see. Let's take a look. Let's go over here. We were looking at M42, just up here. Let's see what we can do with the flame. So this region here, NGC 2024. Okay. So let's go back to our ASIair. Go back to preview, and notice I have to go to preview to get my scope controls back. So I go to here. This gives you all the best, not necessarily the best depending on what view you have in your skies at night, but you can see it's got quite an extensive list. Let's go to the Horsehead. let's do that. Okay. Horsehead, go to, now it's going to move the mount. Fortunately, it doesn't have to go very far. Not much to see there. Let's see if it's even close. Let's do a single shot at 30 seconds and see what we get. I am seriously considering getting the Optolong L Extreme. I've been seeing some really good reviews on that filter for light polluted skies, including full moon skies. So I've been looking at that one pretty hard, and I may go ahead and pick that one up to see how it does in my skies here. Oh, there's the flame. Let's see that. Not really seeing the Horsehead, but it's close because there's the flame there. It should be right in here. Let's go ahead and try 60 seconds once and just see what it does. Okay, I'm going to let this run for a minute or two and see if this Horsehead comes out. I'll be right back. Okay, there's 60 seconds. The flame's coming in nicely, and you can just start to see the Horsehead there in the very center, just coming in. Maybe stacking this will bring it in, so I want to stack it a few times at 60 seconds to see what it does. I kind of don't like it because you see the star trails here a little bit. Actually, I think I'll back it off to 30 seconds and go from there. So let me stack this a few times and I'll be back with you. Okay, there's 60 seconds. The flame's coming in nicely, and you can just start to see the Horsehead there in the very center, just coming in. Maybe stacking this will bring it in, so I want to stack it a few times at 60 seconds to see what it does. I kind of don't like it because you see the star trails here a little bit. Actually, I think I'll back it off to 30 seconds and go from there. So let me stack this a few times and I'll be back with you. Okay, we are at 10 stacks, and you can see the Horsehead in the middle starting to pop out a little bit. The flame's looking pretty good, except it's on the edge of that grayness that I'm going to have to go post-process out. Really thinking about that filter, because I think the filter will help knock a lot of this out as well. I have a lot of light pollution, as you guys have seen. I'm shooting under a street lamp, and I have a whole school lit up across the street from me, and not to mention it's borderlight skies to begin with, competing with all that as well. So, but you can see the Horsehead starting to pop out, so that's actually pretty good. So, but to really get a good capture of this, I really need to be on equatorial with the ability to do really long exposures without worrying about the twist in the object, because I'm limited. As you saw at 60 seconds, I was starting to see star trails, so I'm down to 30 seconds. Now, the only thing about the ASIair Plus I don't like is it doesn't let me fine tune my seconds. So in other words, if I was not star trailing at 50 seconds, I lose that ability. I have to do 30 or I have to do 60. Being able to select my seconds manually through an entry bar that I can just type it in or whatever would be perfect. Hopefully, maybe in a firmware update, they'll consider that, because I may be missing out, you know, another 20 seconds of capturing with this mount. I just don't know that. So anyway, here we are. We are at 14 stacks. I'm going to go ahead and quit this and move on to the next object and see what we get there. Be back in a bit. Okay, we're back with the last one for tonight, and I didn't tell you which one this was when I went to it. I'm showing you the results as we're stacking. We're at 5 stacks at 30 seconds a stack, and It's a field of stars that has a lot of blue nebulosity around them, and you can just start to see the blue nebulosity starting to show up around the stars a little bit as it continues to stack. I'll let you guys figure out what it is I'm talking about, and you can put it in the comments if you think you know the answer. After I get a few comments of people saying what they think it is, then I'll reply back and tell you what it is. But it's the hint I'll give you is the time today on this date is 21:18, and it's just past zenith, so that may give you a clue as to what I'm looking at. But you can see the blue nebulosity starting to come in. I've done this object several times, mostly in EQ. It does take a bit longer to get that blue to come out, especially in the skies I'm shooting at here. Now, one of these days I'll have a video out at our retirement place. I've got a retirement home that I built out in West Texas, Bortle 3 skies. The things you can see with just a pair of binoculars out there is just amazing. And at nighttime in the summer and a new moon, when the core of the galaxy comes up, it looks like there's just oceans of stars in the sky. It actually looks like it's clouds, but it's stars. And on those cloudless night, or on that new moon night, no clouds, total darkness. When the core comes up, you can detect very faint shadows thrown on by starlight alone. It's my most favorite place to be, and we go out there now on weekends and long holidays, but it is where I'm going to eventually retire to. Absolutely immaculate skies there. So let's see, we are at 9 stacks. We'll give it one more, 10. We're going to call this quits for the night. It's about 38 degrees outside, not too bad. No wind, what makes it bearable, but I'm starting to get a little chilled. So we're going to wrap it up. Leave your comments what you think this is, and after I get a few comments, then I will answer back what I'm actually looking at. Until next time, I will see you out there.